Hey everyone! Today we received quite a lot of information about Module 16 in the form of 4 individual developer blog posts and 1 main announcement post. And yes, I am a bit sick, so I'm sorry that I sound like a grumpy old man, but I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to talk about Module 16. Now, I am still under an NDA, so I can't answer any specific questions or give any specific information apart from what has already been released. So first up is the main announcement that Module 16 will be taking players to Undermountain, the realm of the Mad Mage himself, Alistair Blacklock. There is a new player hub called the Yawning Portal, and a new level cap of 80, and the Undermountain sort of quest campaign will take you from level 70 to level 80. And there will be new gear drops along the way from level 71 to, of course, 80. At the end of all that lies a new endgame dungeon. So following up with the level cap increase, since I think that is what most people are going to be most concerned about because of the disaster of Mod 6, the information that we were given says that the new level cap will be 80, and the Undermountain area will take you from level 71 to 80. And to go along with the increase to level 80, you'll see that each class has at least one new daily, encounter, and at-will power. But it's also mentioned that there were a lot of other changes to classes that are covered in a separate thread, as well as changes to core formulas and ratings. It's also mentioned that players will be able to access higher item level artifacts to enjoy. Hopping over to classes, all of the classes have been renamed, and basically they just moved away from the 4th edition D&D predefined build classes, and they're now known by their core names that are really familiar to anyone who has ever played D&D. So we have Cleric, Fighter, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Warlock, Wizard, and Barbarian. So for a lot of them, they just removed the second word in the class name. There is quite a large feat change as well. All the feats are... The whole feat system is completely different. Before, or rather now at least, the way it was implemented and balanced made for a lot of undesirable feats and powers, and basically, as I'm sure you all know, there's an entire feat tree that normally isn't worth even looking at. So now, in Mod 16, each Paragon path will have 5 pairs of feats where you get to choose one of the 2 feats to customize your play. And with the change, they can offer more unique choices that have a distinct impact in play, instead of just a whole bunch of different options where the majority of the feats have no real impact on how you play. And I personally think that that is a good change, because that means that the feats are going to be far more impactful than they were before, because there are less of them. As far as Paragon paths are concerned, they said today that they split more of the powers between the 2 paths, including the new powers added. Each Paragon path will have 2 unique at-wills that are unique to each Paragon, then 2 shared at-wills, 5 unique encounters, 5 shared encounters, 2 unique dailies, and 2 shared dailies. And that makes for 14 total powers between each Paragon. There's also an update to queuing. Currently there's role-based queuing that allows queuing based on the class, with only one exception, which is the Paladin, who can queue as tank or healer. And they like the versatility that Paladin had, and they wanted to extend options to more classes. So in Mod 16, Paladins can queue as tank or healer, Clerics can queue as healer or DPS, Fighters can queue as tank or DPS, Barbarians can queue as tank or DPS, and Warlocks can queue as healer or DPS. And then the other 3, Ranger, Rogue, and Wizard, both have 2 DPS Paragon paths. Also mentioned, power points are going away completely. Whenever you unlock a power by leveling up, you will get the full impact of the power rather than having to wait to upgrade it before using it. Another significant change is changes to tanking and healing. They'll be covered further in the future, but the general information that was given right now is how healing is not much of a factor in the current state of the game, and that's because lifesteal is so powerful that a lot of the times players can just heal themselves. So lifesteal has been removed, and so this is part of the reason why healing will have a much larger place in the game in Mod 16. Paladins and Cleric now spend Divinity on powerful healing spells and have new Divinity earning mechanics in their play, Warlocks use the Soul Essence, which was formerly Soul Shards. That's a tongue twister. And they also have new mechanics for earning Soul Essence in combat. Paladin, Fighter, and Barbarian all have redesigned Guard, which is their shield, and it provides a shield equal to their maximum hit points. The Guard absorbs damage until it is depleted, at which point the damage hits the player directly. An example that they gave is, let's say that a Paladin has 200,000 hit points. They raise their shield and take a hit for 30,000 damage. And then their Guard now has 170k hit points left, and if they take another hit for 200k damage, their Guard is completely gone, and then they take 30,000 damage directly. So tanking and healing have seen some major overhauls in the next update, and I think it's going to be interesting to learn more about how they work and how they're going to fit into the group play. Next up on the developer blog list is item level and scaling. Item level is used currently in Neverwinter to gauge a potential of a given character and is used to gate access to different content. Now, obviously, as we all know, item level is not a good indicator of a player's skill and can be artificially inflated. I don't feel like that's going to change, but item level is going to be standardized because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now with the item level that different pieces of armor give. One example is on the live server, a chest armor piece and a shirt will have the same item level, like the primal armor. You get the chest piece that has all these stats on it for 500 item level, and this shirt that has like 800 stats on it for 500 item level. So like obviously the chest piece is the more useful piece of armor, but they are both worth the same item level, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Another example they gave is mount insignias. They double the amount of stats between the blue rank and the purple rank, but yet their item level doesn't double. It only gives plus 10. So they standardize the item level by making one item level equal 20 rating points. So for example, if you have something that gives plus 1000 power, for example, it will give you 50 item level. And they did say that although it does address the majority of sources of item level, there's still the outliers of companions, mount powers, and bondings. Despite all these changes, they say that it'll adjust some stats that players already have, but it should be an overall gain. They said that chest armor pieces will give slightly fewer stats, but the stats of other armor equipment slots will have been raised up to give more stats than in the past. And the whole goal of this is to make it so that if two people are 12,000 item level, they're really close in terms of their overall potential. Now, I still don't think that item level is going to be a good representation of skill, because you'll still be able to have max enchantments, max gear, max everything, and just have a terrible rotation and just a terrible everything and just be bad at the game in general. Like, that's still possible, and that's not going to change with these changes. Now, in terms of item level scaling, it's really hasn't made lower level content harder as of yet. However, this should be changing in Mod 16. They're implementing a better version of scaling, so they're going to scale a player down to a target item level. And it's not going to be exact, but it should bring the players closer to each other and closer to the content. So if you're put in a lower difficulty dungeon, it'll be harder than if you queued for like Cloak Tower right now, but it's not going to be as hard as an endgame dungeon. Okay, the last but not least is stats and mechanics. The Undermountain expansion brings a lot of changes to fixed balance and progression. This extends to the core math of the game, and they wanted to give some insight on how the math is different than what it was before. On live, you could get 100% crit, 100% lifesteal, 100% deflect, and so on. And that meant that either they had to adjust all of the curves again, which is what they've done for armor penetration. You know, you've seen it go from 60% that you needed to 80% to 85% to 100%. That meant that they had to nerf everyone, basically, and give more room for growth. Now there is something called opposing rolls. And that simply means that you have a rating like critical strike, and the opponent has an opposing rating such as critical avoidance. So these two ratings are compared to figure out how effective you are against that opponent. In other words, the harder opponents are more skilled, and therefore you're less effective against them. They said that this approach allows the game to continue growing without the need to keep adjusting the curves down every time players max them out. Neverwinter already has one set of opposing roles, which is defense and armor penetration. And there's some math in this dev blog that shows you exactly how opposing roles work. I'm not going to try to verbally explain math to you, because without some way to visualize it, I think that that would be a waste of time. There were some stats that were added and removed, of course. There needed to be some stats added to act as opposing ratings, and the ones that were added were critical avoidance, awareness, and accuracy. Stats that were removed are AC, or armor class, AoE resist, damage over time resist, regen, recovery, and lifesteal. And now you're like, wait a minute, what? Recovery and lifesteal are gone? And then you're like, oh my god, I just spent all this money! My character's gonna be ruined! Yeah, I'm guessing that's how you feel right now. They did say that obviously the removal of lifesteal and recovery are the most significant of these changes. Lifesteal is problematic in that it invalidated most sources of healing, which we have seen. It created the situation where you were either full health or dead. Recovery is problematic because it allowed encounter and daily powers to be used almost as frequently as at-wills. Obviously that wasn't true for everyone playing every class, but there were ways to drastically reduce cooldowns, and if you combine them all together, it was very easy to spam encounters and dailies. And that left them with two options when fixing the balance: either drastically reduce the damage of daily and encounter powers, which wouldn't really be fun, it would just be like having 7 at-wills, or make it so that daily and encounter powers could be used less frequently but be much more meaningful. They went with that second option, and that meant that recovery needed to go. Same with lifesteal, there are fewer and more specific sources of AP gain and recharge speed going forward. They left a note that enemies will have the same value for all of their ratings, and all of the enemies in a given zone or dungeon will all have the same rating values. And an example they gave is the first area of Undermountain, where currently all of the enemies have 16,000 for all of their ratings. So 16,000 power, 16,000 crit, 16,000 critical avoidance, and so on. They said that it might change before it's released, but that's how it is right now. Critical Strike gets a bonus 5% by default and caps at 50%. Deflect chance caps at 50%, and Combat Advantage gets a 10% default boost and caps at 100%. So, that is quite a lot of changes, and it's definitely a lot to take in at one time. However, they just started with the developer blogs, and they said that the dev blogs will continue up until release, so be aware that there is most likely a lot more things that they need to announce and go over in detail. Let me know what you think about everything in the comments. I know a lot of you are probably like freaking out right now that you think it's going to be another disaster like Mod 6. I mean, we'll just see as time goes on. There's still a lot of time probably before the new mod, so I wouldn't really worry about it that much. They have a potential date of March 1st set for the Mod 16 hitting the public test server, but as everything, it is subject to change, so it's possible that it won't be out by then. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope my sick voice wasn't too terrible, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!